Built to be stuck. That's unfortunately exactly the situation where a lot of business owners are in. They built the company, they overcame all the obstacles, they really made it, they could survive because most businesses don't get to the 3-year, 5-year or 10-year mark anyway, but they did it. Just to get to a point where they figured out, oh my God, I'm a slave to my own company and I built something to actually be stuck in my own business. That's what we're going to cover on how you can get unstuck in your business in today's episode of Freedom Entrepreneurship. Welcome to Freedom Entrepreneurship, where we are going to answer one question. How can you have both growth and freedom? Or how can you regain your freedom if you do not have the freedom you deserve as an entrepreneur at the moment? My name is Stephan Poschik. Let's get started. Stuck is something I personally, unfortunately, know very, very well. Because when I built my first couple of companies, I always got to a point where I had a certain amount of track record, where I achieved a certain amount of revenue and success. But then I plateaued. I plateaued depending on what area or what experience I had. So I give you a couple of examples. At the very early stages, it was a lot about the marketing because I did not have the network. I did not know how to do marketing. I did not know how to really build my network strategically. I did not know how to build a network online or build an audience online. And guess what? When you're in this situation, you can go to a certain amount of success, but then you're going to be stuck in a role or in a position or at a plateau where you cannot move above this plateau. A little bit later, it was more on the operational side. So of course, at some point I figured out how can I get this marketing piece figured out and how can I generate leads. How can I build a cool audience? How can I build a huge network? And over the last couple of years, I built a network of tens of thousands of people. And so in the meantime, I do not have any issue with network anymore. But at the beginning, like I said, of course, I was stuck in this situation. Another point later on was from an operational perspective. So in one of my former shows, I talked a lot about the 3 major things we have when it comes to outside perspective. So we have marketing, sales, operations, so delivery to the customer. These are the 3 major pillars. And then I got stuck in the operations because we were able to sell a lot of projects, but I needed to do all the delivery on my own. And I needed to have a lot of time and effort to really make our customers happy. And guess what? Suddenly I was making the customers happy, but I was lacking the amount of time and resources to continue to work on my business. And that's actually what we should do as a business owner. So we should not work in our business, but we should work on our business. And that's also a very interesting or very important transition at some point, what every successful business owner needs to go through. Because at the beginning, we are working in the business, we are doing everything ourselves, then we grow to a certain point, we have a couple of team members, and at some point we have to step up and we need to start to work on the business instead of in the business. And I was stuck in operations. Same again, I needed to figure out how can I unstuck myself, and it was a lot with team members back then. So I started with hiring team members, I started with building a team of experts around me with contractors and subcontractors later on. I also used strategic partners for that. But like I said, there are a lot of different opportunities on how you can do that. The really cool thing when it comes to operations is in the meantime, we have all this technology available and especially AI that we can make our operations so much more efficient and effective that we can much easier unstuck ourselves or at least free up time. And the last, and probably for me personally, most important thing where I personally needed to unstuck myself was sales. Because especially when you are in a service-based business, in a lot of situations, there is something where the business owner is the person that has all the contacts and the trust and the relationship and the network to the customers and to the potential customers. And removing yourself as a business owner from this role and also getting a sales team established where the sales team also has enough trust and reputation to the contacts and to the customers can be pretty challenging. And at least for me, it was very challenging. But same again, of course, then you build a team and you can unstuck yourself. But here is the interesting part, and here is probably one of the most annoying things what a lot of business owners experienced. They figured it out that they can make revenue. They figured it out how they can unstuck themselves from marketing, from sales, from operations. They even built a sustainable company where they are generating a nice revenue, where they are generating a nice cash flow. But then they are ending up in a situation that looks a lot like the following. And what I'm going to describe to you now in a moment is not what probably one business owner experienced, but what millions of business owners on this planet are experiencing. No matter if you are in Europe, in Central Europe, like in Austria, where I am originally from, or in Italy, in Sardinia, where I live in the meantime, or if you are in the US, where we are also doing business with two of my companies. So the situation is very, very similar. And let's take the consulting service industry as an example. When you take a look at the consulting service industry, over 80% of all consulting service businesses with a handful of employees, so I'm talking about 5 employees up to 30 employees, they are owned by white male guys 55 years plus. So this alone is already a very interesting statistics. Because, okay, where are all the women? Where are all the other people? Where are all the other cultures? No, that's especially in North America and in Europe, the industry or how the industry looks like. And now imagine you are one of these business owners and you literally built your whole life or your whole career, or you invested your whole life to building a successful business. And then you are 55 years plus, 60 years plus, and at a certain point you can think or you want to think about retirement. And then you figure out you are in the following situation. Okay, good. Now I could retire when it comes to the age. But, oh shit, I do not have successors. I do not have hires who want or can take over the business. So why is this the case? I worked 30 years my ass off. I was working on the weekends. I was working during vacation. I was working long evenings, and my kids, or probably even my grandkids, watched dad or grandpa destroy their health, don't have a lot of time and effort for the family, don't have a lot of energy left, working on the weekends, working on vacation, constantly being in the business. And guess what? The next generation, they have zero interest in taking over a business like that, because they do not want to work like that anymore. They do not want to sacrifice 30 years of their life to get to a certain success level or get to a certain level of cash or money or financial freedom. So nobody's going to take over the company. Nobody is there to really step into it and basically keep going. So now that's one situation. Now let's talk about the other situations. So a lot of these business owners, they built quite a nice lifestyle, but quite a nice lifestyle also needs quite a nice amount of money. And when you have a very good business, which is cash flowing and spitting out a huge amount or a nice amount of money every single month and every single year, you can build quite a nice lifestyle. And small business owners, you can also have a huge amount of things that are tax deductible, or when you run a lot of things through your company, you can also optimize it from a tax perspective. So really cool. But when at some point you probably want to exit your company, you want to sell your company, or probably you want to retire, you will figure out, oh, I'm stuck here because I'm quite dependent on the cash flow of my company. So I cannot just shut it down from 1 month to the next, from one moment to the next one, and just step out and continue with the same lifestyle. So hopefully you invested very intelligently, that you already have a huge amount of passive income coming from somewhere else, like real estate or franchise systems or licensing systems or whatever. But what we see in a consulting side, where we work with hundreds and thousands of small business owners, most of them are not in this situation. Good. What is another situation these business owners find themselves in? So they run their company very, very family-like, because in most of these small businesses, somebody from the family is also in the business. Maybe the wife is doing back office stuff or accounting or helping in marketing. Maybe the uncle or the son is somewhere doing in the tech area, whatever. So there are family members in the business. Plus, there is a very high loyalty to the people in the company, so to the employees and to the team members. So also this is something where the business owner, it's just not possible, not imaginable for him to just shut down the company, to fire all these people, because when he closes the company, they would basically lose their jobs and then just retire. So it's just not aligned with their value system. But at the end of the day, same again, they are stuck. And here is another thing. When you build something for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years of your life, this is your baby. This is your legacy. You build something what you want to last. You don't build a business what you want to just shut down and forget, and your name is gone and your brand is gone and everything what you did over the last 30 years is just gone. No, it's like basically, this is my legacy, what I built here as a business owner. I just don't want to just shut it down. I want my legacy protected. And I had a very, very cool conversation around that with one of our participants in our last mastermind in Sardinia a couple of weeks ago. And he was talking a lot about, okay, how can he make sure that his legacy is protected, that his business continues even after his retirement, even after his death, because he invested 45 plus years into his legacy. And of course you want to protect your legacy. Okay, but here it is. When you shut down your company, it's literally like you are cutting off a limb. And would you cut off your left arm or your right foot to just retire? No, nobody is going to do that. So same again, somehow stuck. And because of these things, most business owners, especially baby boomers in the meantime, are in a very, very similar situation. So you probably heard already about this massive, massive wealth transfer that's going on, that's going to happen in the next 10 to 15 years, where trillions of dollars are going to move from the boomer generation, from businesses that the boomer generations are owning and running and founded, to the next generation. But okay, to the next generation, there is nobody who wants to take over. So they are all stuck in the same situation. And because of the things I mentioned before, and because something that's called key man dependency, they are not ready to exit. So even if they try to sell their business, nobody is going to take over their business, because when you remove the owner from one moment to the next one, actually everything breaks. Why? Remember what I said at the beginning. With the marketing or with the sales, when you start something, you are most likely the person who has all the relationships to the customer. Probably even if you have a sales team, when it's a really, really important decision, when it's a really, really important deal, the customer wants to speak to the owner before. When it's a really huge project, the owner is probably even involved in the execution of the project. Why? Just to give the customer a good feeling or help the customer to feel safe enough to really sign the contract for a huge amount or for a couple of 100K or for a couple of million, whatever products or services you are selling. And now we're just talking about the sales and marketing side. So we are basically talking about the revenue side at the moment. So I'll give you a couple of other examples from the revenue side. When you as the business owner are the only person who can really close a big deal, you are stuck. If you do not close a deal anymore, nobody's going to close big deals. Guess what? If you are generating most of the revenue from your company, you are stuck. Because what happens if you're going on vacation? What happens if you want to take care of your kids? If you want to, or if you need to take care of your parents, probably elder care or whatever. Yeah, there are so many things that can happen in life. What we don't want to have, what we do not plan for, but they still happen to us. And suddenly we need to deal with it. So not only that we are stuck in a situation like that, and a lot of business owners find themselves there, but they are also at a very high risk level because nobody else is selling, or nobody else has the contacts, or nobody else knows how to close the deal. Good. Now let's talk a little bit on the more on the internal side. Especially small business owners tend to delegate tasks. I talked about that a lot in one of my previous shows already. But delegating tasks is something completely different than delegating a responsibility, delegating accountability, delegating the result for something, delegating the outcome. Okay? Super short example. I can delegate that somebody is doing LinkedIn postings for me. So I delegate the marketing task. Okay. I could also delegate the responsibility to grow my LinkedIn audience and generate 10 sales opportunities per week through the platform LinkedIn. Okay, you see, there is a huge difference between what I delegate when somebody is just doing LinkedIn postings for me or when I delegate, okay, you are fully responsible and accountable for generating these results. Yeah. And you will also have different people, or you will need different people in your team, because not everybody who is just executing tasks is going to be able to handle outcome-based work. And as long as you just delegate tasks, you will never be completely free, because your business needs you to delegate the tasks, to call the plays. Every major decision needs to run through your table. Maybe you are the only person who can sign something in your company, and on and on and on and on. So I literally could go on for hours here to give you more examples on how you are stuck or how a lot of business owners are stuck. Okay? And that's the situation. And to be really honest, I was working toward this situation over years. I literally was working towards these situations over years myself, because nobody told me and I didn't know it. And I also was lacking the experience to know, how do I need to build my company for success? How do I need to build my business architecture? How do I need to put growth and scaling mechanisms in place that I'm not ending up in a situation that I'm stuck at some point? And that's exactly what the concept of freedom entrepreneurship can give you. Because when you build your company that way, and you are in this situation that you feel stuck or you have the feeling, oh my God, it's going good, I'm also making money, but actually, where is the freedom? I feel stuck. I cannot just quit from today, one day after another. I cannot just step out from one day to another. Then you are exactly in this situation. You build something amazing, but you build something to get stuck. And how you basically can unstuck yourself, that's exactly what the concept of freedom entrepreneurship is all about. So it's 4 pillars. So the first pillar is the business architecture. The second pillar is growth and scaling as a tool. The next pillar is AI as a freedom lever. And the last pillar is founder psychology and entrepreneurial mindset. And that's exactly what we want to share with you and what we are teaching in the other shows where I deep dive into that and where I prepared a very special white paper for you, and you can download this white paper now for free. So either you just go to the show notes from this episode and you click the link and you can download the white paper for free, or you just find me on LinkedIn with my name, Stephan Poschik. This is Stephan with a P and H, and Poschik, this is Poschik. And you find me on LinkedIn and you just DM me the word freedom on LinkedIn. So find my name, Stephan Poschik, on LinkedIn and DM freedom. And I'm going to send you the white paper, what I refer to, and where you see exactly how you can get unstuck. So for now, I hope you have a wonderful and successful entrepreneurial journey. And I'm very much looking forward to hear from you. And I hope you are not stuck. If you are stuck, just reach out to us or download the white paper. Thanks for now and have a successful day. Bye.